Hi, Dan Ferris here, editor of Extreme Value, published by Stansberry Research. And today's video is inspired by a story that was in the news about 5 years ago, and I wrote about it in Extreme Value in April of 2013. And it's the story of poor Henry. And I'll tell you the story, and then I'll tell you a little bit about why poor Henry behaved the way he did and why things turned out badly for him. And then I'll try to tie that in with the way investors have been behaving lately. So the story of poor Henry starts with a fellow named Henry, a 30-year-old kind of tough-looking guy with some tattoos, who had a toddler-aged child pushing a stroller. They showed him on the news. And he went to a local traveling carnival that was in town near where he lived in New Hampshire. And Henry had $300 in his pocket, which was a lot of money to him. And he came upon a game that we all recognize called Tubs of Fun. Wasn't much fun for him. But Tubs of Fun is that thing where the tub is sitting not too far away from you and you get a chance to throw 3 softballs into it. And if you can make even one of them stay, you win a prize. If you can make all 3 of them stay, you get some bigger prize, I think. And in this case, the big prize was an Xbox, a Microsoft Xbox machine, which should give you a clue at how insanely difficult it is to do this. And the Tubs of Fun operator will, he'll drop a ball right into the tub right in front of you and say, see, the ball stays. People say the ball doesn't stay, but it does. Of course, he's standing right next to it, so it doesn't drop with much force. Then he leaves that ball in there, hands you one and says, here, take a practice throw. You throw the ball, the softball that's already in there absorbs some of the force and your ball stays. And you say, well, this is easy, right? Then he takes the ball out and he gives you 3 softballs and there's no ball in there to absorb the force. And you're basically throwing a ball at a solid wall. And so it bounces out every time. And that's how the game works. And of course, nobody ever wins, like with all carnival games. But poor Henry, he just didn't quite get it. He wanted that Xbox really bad. And the news story at the time said he went through the $300 in his pocket in minutes. Minutes! But he didn't stop there. That's where it really turns tragic. He went home and he got basically the rest of his life savings, $2,300, and he came back and he lost all of that too. The ride operator felt bad for him and gave him a big stuffed toy, this giant banana with a Rastafarian hat and dreadlocks, and it was just this big goofy banana toy. And Henry actually spoke with a news reporter, and he said, you get all caught up in trying to make your money back, and before you know it, you've lost it all. And I think this is a good story for investors to know about, because Henry was very naive about the game that he was playing. I think that was one of his big mistakes. I don't know if it was first. I'll let you decide what order he made them in. But he made that mistake where he was too naive. He just didn't get that carnival games are rigged in favor of the carnival. It's like a casino. It's like going to Las Vegas. They're not going to lose money on slot machines. They're going to make money on slot machines. And they design the slot machines to get as much money out of you as possible, right? You put a few coins in, and then, woo, after 3 or 4 pulls, you win a little bit. Not quite as much as you put in, but a little bit. And then you figure, oh, well, I'm on a streak. I'm going to keep winning. And they keep you interested and they soak you. And, if you look on casinos, last time I looked at a entertainment company like MGM, their balance sheet, it was, like $1.7 billion or $2 billion or some huge number of revenue just on the slot machines. And I imagine it's similar, but with smaller numbers for the carnival. The money just keeps rolling in because people don't get it. Because people don't win, actually. Most of them get it after a couple of tosses. But because they don't win, they make a lot of money. And poor Henry just did not understand this. And if he had understood that, if he had come into the game knowing it was rigged against him, I bet his behavior would have been different. The other thing he was doing was pursuing an easy financial gain. He thought he could give them a couple of bucks and get a $300 Xbox. And that ain't the way life works. Generally speaking, the overwhelming majority of the time, if an Xbox costs $300, you are going to have to find $300 and pay $300 to get it. You're not going to get an easy financial gain. And those two really are the big mistakes. He also had a bias toward action, I think. You know, he thought, I've got to do something. I'm losing money. I've got to do something to get it back. Well, no, you don't. You have to do nothing fast. You have to stop doing something and do nothing. Because doing nothing will mean not continuing to play the game, not continuing to dump money down a bad trade. So I'm going to add one more wrinkle to the story that I didn't tell back in 2013 when poor Henry was in the news. And that wrinkle is the Thanksgiving turkey wrinkle. Okay? Sometimes it can kind of be the opposite of poor Henry, and you can be making a little bit of money and a little bit of money and a little bit of money, and you make it over and over again, and it feels really good. And then wham! One day the money's all gone. And of course, I've been warning people about shorting the VIX, the volatility index, since September 2016. And I renewed my warning in September 2017 twice, once in the newsletter and once at the annual Stansberry conference in Las Vegas. And I told people this was going to blow up, and the people shorting the VIX were going to lose money, a lot of it all at once. And it's not the sort of thing that you can see coming. It just happens very quickly. And as I told people in Las Vegas in September, last September, you know, the two big short VIX funds doubled in size just about in August of 2017. Well, as I told them at the time, it can go the other way in 2 hours, not just 2 weeks. They doubled in 2 weeks in August. I told them it can go the other way, where they're cut in half or worse, much worse, in 2 hours. And that's exactly what happened on February the 5th, Monday, when the short VIX fund with the ticker symbol XIV just plummeted. And it was within a few minutes there, after hours, it went from 99 to 1250 was the last quote I saw. And more recently, I saw a quote of about $6. So people just lost, you know, 80, 90%, huge amount of their money really fast. And that's the way this is. That's the short VIX trade is the Thanksgiving turkey trade. The Thanksgiving turkey gets fatter and fatter. The population of turkeys around him is growing and growing and growing. Things look great. He's extrapolating out into the future. Well, you know, at this rate, I'm going to be a millionaire in no time. And then Thanksgiving happens and all the turkeys get killed. And that's what happened with the VIX trade. You know, because just like poor Henry, they didn't understand the game they were playing. They didn't know that money isn't this easy. And if it is this easy, something is very wrong. Something is going to happen in the future to take it all away from you. And so, you know, it's this idea of easy money in financial markets. Sure, it's easy to open an online account. It's easy to buy and sell equities. It's easy to short VIX. It's easy to do all kinds of things in that way. But it's very difficult to make money in securities markets in general, in public securities markets, stocks, bonds. To make a lot of extra money is really difficult. To make some money, a decent gain over time, you know, you buy an index fund and hold it for 40 years or something like that, that's not especially difficult. But the big gains that short VIX traders were making, that just doesn't happen. And if you make them, you should get the hell out and hang on to your money. And if you continue in the trade, you should trade smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. What happens is people get more confident. They trade bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Thanksgiving comes along and the turkey gets his head whacked off. And I'm afraid that the event of February the 5th wasn't sufficient. Well, we know it wasn't sufficient to flush all the short VIX out of the market. And there is a lot more pain to come for these people. And it will show up exactly the same way. It'll happen in a matter of minutes or, you know, hours or minutes. And they won't see it coming. And they'll be done. They'll be finished just like that. And millions of profits, in some cases, will go to zero or even negative. They'll wind up owing. There was one fellow who posted on Reddit who was using leverage. He was using margin to trade the short VIX. ETFs. So yeah, it can go bad in a heartbeat. That should be the big overwhelming lesson. And if you're short VIX, you should be unwinding in the best way that you can. And if you got wiped out and you got stopped out, then you should stay out, because there's a problem with this. There's no such thing as skill in doing these things. It's like selling puts out of the money. There's no skill at this. There's only an endless string of luck. And then one day, wham, it goes the other way really hard. And I know the put sellers do the same thing. They trade too big, they get too confident, they make a little bit of money over and over and over again, but it's the same thing. It's a steamroller that you think has 2 gears and really has 16, and it goes from 1st to 16th in a heartbeat, literally in minutes, and it just mows you down. And all those nickels you picked up in front of that steamroller disappear just in an instant. And people have too difficult a time wrapping their heads around this type of a trade, and especially wrapping their heads around the enormous risk involved in something they've consistently made money at over and over again, in some cases, in the case of the short VIX trade, for years. Since about 2012, this has been a pretty neat trade. And it's starting to not be a neat trade, and it's going to get worse, I promise. So that's my message for today. Don't be like poor Henry. Understand how the game is rigged. Understand what you're up against. Understand the huge risk you're taking and the great likelihood of failure. And what happens when failure happens? You know, you can go to 0 in these short VIX instruments. And, you know, if you're in it, don't be like poor Henry. Cut your losses short. Cut your losses early and move on and get the heck out. Okay? That's today's message. And I'll talk to you again real soon, okay? Thanks a lot for tuning in. Bye.